Hello and welcome to The Extra Point. I am Kendall Gammon and I'm joined today by Mr. Harry Campbell. But first, before we get into that, I want to thank our sponsor for making this possible, Crown Automotive of Lawrence, Kansas, for all your Toyota or Volkswagen needs. Give them a call at 785-843-7700 or simply go to crownautomotive.com. And now to the show, The Extra Point, and I am joined by a guy who has been a friend for quite some time. He is an author. He is a speaker. He is, I think, helped head up Fortune 500 companies, a couple if I'm not mistaken. But Harry Campbell, Harry, welcome to The Extra Point.
I am so fired up to be here. I can't stand it. Thanks, Kendall.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When I gave you the invite, you were like, okay, this sounds like something fun and cool, and you accepted it right away. So I appreciate that. You honored me by coming on. So, just to kind of catch people up a little bit, what are you generally doing these days? I know you were most recently at, I forget which eye refractive surgery.
Dury Vision.
Yeah, Dury Vision. You were the CEO there, but you've done a lot of different things. Just catch people up a little bit.
Sure. Since I left Dury Vision, which was a planned exit so that Dr. Jason Stahl could take over the business, I've been doing basically cobbling together a pretty cool existence here. I spend quite a bit of time with my family, but I also do a lot of mentoring and coaching of people, particularly in, I'll call it the early stage and or startup businesses in the tech community. I just love doing it. I don't do it as a business, but I do it informally and formally anyway. I do speaking. I've written 3 books, and we'll talk about that. They're in the Get Real series: Get Real Leadership, Get Real Culture, and Get Real Mindset. And so I have speaking gigs, and I do podcasts in order to promote my speaking and get the opportunity to get more of those. And the other thing I do is I'm involved with 3 or 4 companies in town that we're investors in, my wife and I'm on the board for a couple of them. And the final thing we do is the philanthropy. So instead of having one job with a couple of small things on the side, I've got 3 or 4 big things and the tentacles out in the community that way.
You know, it's interesting because I remember talking to you when you did have that planned exit from being the CEO there with Dury, and I remember you saying you weren't sure what you were going to do, but you knew you were going to keep busy, and you've done you've definitely done that for sure. You know, I think it's interesting. You brought it up, but I've got 2 of your books. I look forward to reading the 3rd at some point, and I just think that is phenomenal. You know, let's go back a little bit. You talked about the technology side of things, and you used to be involved with a company called UClick, correct?
I did. That was one of my badges of honor. That's embarrassing to talk about. I became the CEO of an internet startup in the River Market. We were in the brick building that's the far west. I think it was on 4th Street, so it overlooks the downtown airport. Liver One is the company that's in there, and matter of fact, I know the founder and owner of that, Erica Brun. We were a digital spinoff from Andrews McMeel. We had the digital rights to branded content like Doonesbury, Dear Abby, and a lot of comics. We were ahead of our time. This was 1999. We were eyeball-driven advertising business, and in '99, we weren't. If you were not AOL, you were not going to get enough traction with regard to viewership. So the business failed. I had to lay off half the company. The other half actually was folded back into Andrews McMeel, and still some of the vestiges of that business exist today. But the failure was so hard to take, and there's a humiliation factor outside yourself that it's hard to get over. But at the end of the day, the lessons that I learned, and when I was running that business, which I was in my late 30s, were extraordinary, and they actually made me better later when I was working at different companies.
You know, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that, and I wasn't trying to bring up the worst thing first, but I actually posted a video this morning that my good friends at Social Apex helped me produce, and it was about me falling flat on my face in the middle of Arrowhead, and 77,000, I heard this audible, oh, and I got up, and I was embarrassed, I was mad, I was cussing, I was inventing cuss words, I think, out there, and of course I look around and nobody did it. but then I quickly had to recompose myself and go about what I was doing. And really, the whole to sum it up, the whole lesson of that story is you basically just have to get up one more time than you're knocked down. And the only inevitable thing in life is you are going to get knocked down.
That's very fair. And I had nobody to blame but myself, not for the business model, but prior to that, I had been at Procter & Gamble and at Sprint, and I was on a nice, actually a very good trajectory with my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit as a vice president at Sprint, and I quit to be the co-owner of a small business. And we were wildly successful, Mr. K Award winner in 1998. The company was called MAI. Yep. And so at that point, I felt like, all right, my big company business was really good. And I got out of that. And now I'm running a small business and we're making a lot of money. This is easy. So I sold my half of that business to my partner and went into the .com world with UClick. And guess what? Yeah, the infallibility factor came to play there.
Right.
Wow. And I am convinced, as I said, I was in my late 30s, that lesson was extraordinarily important because humbleness and humility are important characteristics anyway, and it's hard to not be when you failed miserably.
Okay, so I want to unpack that a little bit, and I didn't even know we were going to go there, but I think that's very important because, I've had some things in my life happen that really were due to, I think, getting a little too full of myself and just not having my priorities in line. And I think when we're knocked back down, as you said, that humbles us. I know I was always thankful for a snap that wasn't so good that still got off, because I felt like that humbled me a little bit, but I didn't always transition that to my personal life like I should have. Can you talk on that?
Sure. I completely agree with that. When you have positive momentum and things continue to go well, and you don't have even hardly any speed bumps and blips,
right?
I'm convinced that there's a human side to virtually everybody. Good luck if you're somebody that doesn't do this, but you get too full of yourself. Right. I distinctly remember a conversation with a headhunter out of Chicago, very reputable firm, and it made my head blow up in a good way. Well, that's not true. In a way that
right.
affected me later. Yeah. What he said was the .com world of 98, 99, if you're old enough to remember that, the amount of venture capital money and private equity and URLs that were turned into IPOs and stuff, it was crazy world. And what he said was Silicon Valley is looking for adult supervision of their businesses. And what they're looking for is they want people that come from disciplined companies that can prove that they have good learning and foundational training. I started at P&G. They want people that can leave that company and then prove that they can succeed somewhere else instead of just one company. I went to Sprint. And they want people that prove that they can work at a 20-person company or a 30-person company as much as they can one that's 20,000. And MAI was 24. Okay. So I checked all the boxes, and he said, you're going to start getting phone calls. And I did. And every one of them made me feel like I was an all-star. Right. And I ended up doing house hunting trips and interviews to San Francisco. I'm very fortunate that the job I ended up taking was in that world, but it was in Kansas City, not in the Bay Area. I would have gone, and a couple of twists and turns I would have been, and my life would have been changed. Right. So I took the job. It was in Kansas City. Didn't affect my family as much as it would have, but was the growth and learning experience. It ended up the failure that I needed in order to springboard for later.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I have this circle of success and or how things go that I talk about in a book that I'm writing now, a workbook. And at the very end, there's a line, and it's confidence and arrogance, and we have to be careful to toe that line. And I'm not the one that invented that saying, but I think it's something that we all have to be wary of for sure. Now, I want to go back, Harry, a little bit. You mentioned something that I think is very interesting and important to not gloss over, which is your time at P&G, Procter & Gamble, and being somebody who was picked or helped lead a group that went down and had a presence in Bentonville, which I believe at the time where Walmart was built and based, I think they had maybe a requirement that you had to have a group down there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. P&G and Walmart were very large companies. One was the biggest customer of the other, and one was the biggest supplier of the other. But the companies didn't like each other. And Mr. Sam came up with the idea that if you move people from your company, not just salespeople,
Mm-hmm.
You move people from the multifunctional areas of your company down here, and we learn how to run the business together. Our competitors will be able to follow. They'll be able to do it because you're not going to do it in a proprietary way.
Right.
But if you design your business better, instead of just you sell to me and then go away, we will be more successful. And so I moved my family down to Northwest Arkansas and lived there for about 2.5 years. And it was an extraordinary experience because the job didn't exist. We had to create it. I got the chance to be around Sam Walton quite a bit. There was a charity work that I was doing and my wife was doing at the time that his wife was doing. And so I got to see him operate and understand his leadership principles and abilities. And he was the richest man in the world. So you don't scoff at stuff like that. You're like, you know what?
Yeah.
He may have it figured out.
Exactly.
And I loved it. And the multifunctional team that we moved was the first one ever. And now I think there's 700 of them down there. And you have to have a team down there if you're going to do business with them, as you said.
Wow, that's interesting. Just as an aside, and I'm going to give my alma mater of Pittsburgh State University a little love because Lee Scott, who's a graduate of Pittsburgh State, he was the CEO there for some time, and he's actually the brother of the president of Pittsburgh State University, Steve Scott. So I've been involved with them a little bit, but I've always, had this interest and love for Walmart also in the fact that my father grew up going to the first Walmart. My grandmother and Sam were good friends. And as I say, thank goodness my dad didn't buy any stock back then, because who knows what would have happened.
Was the first store in Rogers? Is that where it was?
I honestly don't know. I know my dad lived in Bentonville and they used to go into the first store all the time. I hear the story, and I don't think it's folklore, which is my grandmother years later was living in Oklahoma and not treated well in a Walmart, and she didn't like it. So she gave Sam a call, and Sam drove up there and he took care of business. I always think that's pretty interesting. That probably doesn't surprise you though, does it?
It doesn't. The way he operated was amazing. People were at the center of everything, and your relationship and respect. And I saw him do that in words and actions and body language, and he was beloved as a result. So he was able to get relationships incredibly positive, respect, two-way respect for everybody, and results. And having someone that does that is so wildly successful be around you, and you get a chance to meet them and talk to them and be with them is life-changing.
Okay, so I hear you talking about him. I've heard you talk about a few others and things that you're thankful for. So this is going to take us into our first segment that we do each and every week called The Power of Gratitude. And when I talk about the power of gratitude, what are you thankful for in your life, be it people or be it events? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. I'm going to start very clearly with my family. I don't think you're going to run into many people that wouldn't do that or have them on the list.
Right.
Particularly my wife. She was diagnosed in 2004 with a malignant inoperable brain tumor. She survives with it today. And I just think about the gratitude I have with regard to how she has helped me understand so many things and supported me in a period of time when, from a health standpoint, that was very, very difficult. So the other piece I have to say is my 3 kids. I don't know if people say their gratitude extends that way, but I do. Kind of my favorite job in the world is being either a husband or a father. Being a father is awesome. I got a 26-year-old son, a 24-year-old daughter, and a 12-year-old son, and it's the coolest thing. And the reason why I have gratitude for them is they stretch me, they pull me, they poke me, they prod me, they make me grow, they make me learn, they make me love, and all those things kind of mesh together in a way that makes me so extraordinarily better than I would be without the 3 kids and my wife. I can't even explain it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And yeah, I had a chance to spend time with my oldest son last night and going to go to dinner tonight with my youngest son. And you're exactly right. There is nothing better than being a father. And I posted this on social media a while back, and it was just, a repost, but, we don't always understand how much, or our kids don't understand how much we get from them. I mean, they get a lot from us, but they don't understand until they become their parents themselves, just how unbelievably wonderful it is to be a parent.
Amen. Amen. I'm going to move off the family one and move into the business world. And I have
Yes.
this interesting eclectic group. I love what Jim Rohn, the famous networker and businessman, said, is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that includes your values, your compensation, and every other way. I have a couple of groups that are amazing. I have one that's a birthday group. There's 6 of us. We get together regularly. We solve the world's problems, usually at the Peanut. COVID's caused some problems, but we've worked around it Zoom-wise. And 3 of us were actually born on the same day, August 11th, different years. The other 3 weren't born on 8/11, but they're non-voting members because of that. And so we have this extraordinary exchange of talking about our lives, our business, our families that I love. So that's a local group in Kansas City. The group that really makes me smile goes way back to Procter and Gamble. It's surrounded by a 4-day golf weekend. We're in our 26th consecutive year. Same 16 people go, and we're all either former or current P&G employees. And I will tell you, the success in that group is amazing, and that makes you stretch. It makes you question yourself in a good way. It makes you push, and it helps you evaluate what's important. And they're all wonderful people. They're supportive, and they're successful. And so I have this in-town group that I have, but the Dienerfest group, the one that I'm talking about, the golfing group, they're spread out across the United States, and we regularly connect, and we are in full support of each other. And I realize the gratitude that I have for how they have pushed me and helped me is immeasurable.
That's beautiful. You're talking about relationships, and clearly, Harry, you've taken care of your relationships over the years, which I think is sometimes overlooked, and people don't take enough care of that. I was fortunate enough to go down to Florida here maybe a month and a half back and sit down and talk on an extra point with Gene Bicknell, who of course started National Pizza Company and a lot of different things. And we talked about our COI, our Center of Influence. And he specifically said, they say that if you can find 5 true friends that you can count on and that you can talk to about anything, that you are truly a wealthy man. And it sounds like you are wealthy, well above that. So that's a wonderful thing to hear.
I have a name for those folks. For me, they're stretcher bearers. That comes from Adam Hamilton at Church of the Resurrection. And I love that term. And it's not meant to be maudlin. It really is the people that if I had a problem and called them, they would fly here today.
It's interesting you say that, because once you say that, I instantly go back to that sermon. Of course, that brings up an interesting point as well, is the fact that you and I both go to the Church of the Resurrection and sit by each other just by chance quite often, which I think is interesting. And it's been an interesting relationship. We didn't start with it, but I can't remember how many years ago we met, or specifically how we met. But I know that you said you spoke and that you were going to be speaking, I think maybe to a Rotary group at Deer Creek, and asked me if I wanted to come. And then I think you were surprised that, lo and behold, I did come.
You showed up, and I shouldn't have been surprised, because I do tell this to my kids and also some of the people around me. I said, I tell you, there's a hell of a percentage of winners in the United States that win because they show up, right? When invited, they show up, and all of a sudden you go, okay, here we go.
Well, I think lots of time in life, we have a lot of opportunities, and for whatever reason, we let them pass. And I think you've got to take advantage. I didn't do that all the time, but I try to do it more and more, because basically, if they're going to ask and they're going to invite, then you might as well take them up on it. And it's not that it's a slight if you can't go, but I think, why not? I'm so big. Going back to it, which is on relationships and trying to work with people. I know when I speak, that's what I talk about, is emotional persistence and emotional strength, and how you connect, and how we as human beings are pack animals, and we want to connect. Even the accountant that's working by himself in a room still wants to feel a part of it. Now you've been in charge of groups as low as 5 people all the way up to 3,500. How did you make people feel included? I got you on that one, didn't I?
I love this. It's the reason why I'd rather do this than speak, because it's unfiltered Harry Campbell. My answer is authenticity and consistency. Let me tell you why I use both those words. I can really do nothing other than give a straight answer. If I don't want to answer something or I get emotional about it, maybe I don't. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'll give it the straight scoop, and I shoot straight. And if you're willing to be authentic, and that means not thinking of yourself as better than other people, and that also means if you're in a position that you have to make a decision or have a position of power, you use it appropriately. That authenticity is amazing, and I think it doesn't just make you better as a leader. What it does is it makes the culture in the organization better. And I say consistency because I grew up in an alcoholic family, and we weren't consistent. There was no consistency with my father. I was always in what I like to say is a ready defensive position because I didn't know what was going to happen 5 minutes from now. And that affects you. It keeps you from doing a lot of the things you want to do. You can't grow the way you want to grow. You just, some of your energy is going that way. You take the same thing in a business organization. If my organization or the people that work for me are so worried about whether I'm going to be mad at them today and then happy with them tomorrow, and they're not sure, it's not possible they can do as good a job.
Right.
I want them to understand where they are. Hopefully they'll be in a great place and they're fine. And if they are, then what they're doing is they're working on the pricing strategy we need, the product launch that will help us against the competition. And what they're doing is they're contributing instead of worrying about their own personal space. People are normal, and if you make them worry about themselves or their job or getting in trouble, they will. If you remove that, they are set free and they can do great things.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. It sounds to me a little bit that you're saying basically as a leader also that you want to give the freedom for everybody else to be who they are, not be intimidated by that, and really help others be the best version of themselves. Now, when I talk about that, though, I want to go into this part of also, because to me, there's three parts of a person in their life. They have their personal life, they have their friends and family life, and of course they have their professional life. How did you approach not just the professional life, but those other two that I talked about in terms of the personal or the friends and family?
With interest and curiosity. I'm an extrovert. I tend to try to develop relationships and connections. And so I inherited a team, and I've got 7 direct reports, and they've got spouses and kids. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I want my lead team, so the people that report to me, the 8 of us, the 7 that work for me and myself, when I want to do an event, what I would do is I would have them invite their spouses and their kids, and I would go to Incredible, which used to be at 151st in Antioch, Danny Jackson's bowling place.
Yes.
We would rent the side room over there, and we would have crazy, prideful bowling games. And there's nothing like a 9-year-old of mine bowling against an 11-year-old of yours, and everybody is just having a howling hoot of a time. I love those things because I watch, I learn, I'm joyful about it. When my peers used to do things, want to get together with their lead team, they go to a private room at the Bristol. There is nothing wrong with that. But Harry Campbell is not a private room at the Bristol guy. I am a chicken fingers at Incredible guy because I want that connection, and it enables me to, in an unobtrusive way, get to know people, who they are, and how they present themselves when they're not around me and not in the corporate environment.
I think that's beautiful. I think human beings ultimately, we said they want to connect, but they want to be known, and they want to know that they make a difference. And as I say all the time, if you treat people like they matter, well, then they do matter, and this world becomes just a little bit better place. And really, that's what I hear you saying.
Yes. And I tell you, as the people pleaser in my family, by the way, you don't get to choose your role in your family. It is what it is. And that's the one I got in the family I grew up in, the alcoholic family. You're in a position that you have to try to calm the waters and make sure everything's okay. And a lot of times you're giving up yourself in order to do that. And wow, that's rough. But I learned and kind of overcame that eventually. And I learned that with people, they're amazing. And I said this the other day, and I'm going to repeat it now. I have seen it time and time again. 3 things you need to do with people. You need to treat them like adults. Imagine that.
Right.
You need to give them the tools to do their job. I didn't say skills. That's a hiring and management and training. The tools. If you ask somebody to do spreadsheets and you don't give them a computer, that's kind of stupid. Okay. So the tools to do the job and the feeling that they're connected with something that's broader than themselves and a greater good in the company, preferably, but that's fine. If you do those three things, 98% of the people will do a solid to a great job. 2% are cheaters and liars. Welcome to the human race. But I don't worry about them. I'll figure them out. I want to turn people loose. And if you do that, you treat them like adults, give them the tools, and make them feel connected. They will do unbelievable things for you and with you. And as a result of your leadership, and don't ever forget, people don't want to be seen as liars. They don't want to be seen as lazy. Right. They don't want to be bored. They want their time to fly, but they don't know what that looks like unless you set the right culture and environment to do that.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. Then the fact of I'm reading a book now. I forget the name of it, but one thing they talk about that is basically team members in general. They have about a 15% chance that they're going to leave the company. But when you bestow at least 12 true grateful acts on them throughout the year, that declines all the way to about 2.5%. And I think that just goes back to what we're saying about, which is when you make people feel connected, you make them feel worthy, you trust them, you make them feel like they matter. That goes so far in helping the success of that company. Now, if it's a flawed business plan, or you've got a widget that was really popular 5 years ago and not now, then maybe you can't deflect that. But the fact of having the team members want to work, I think what you're saying is beautiful.
Thank you. I believe in this wholeheartedly. I'm a big fan of recognition. Reward is important too. Reward tends to be overused and in place of recognition. And reward is a raise or a bonus or something like that. I love recognition because just pay attention sometime if you're standing in a group of 75 people and you point to somebody and you say, you know what, Susan, the work you did on that really kind of ugly project that we had over the last 3 weeks was hard. It was sticky, and it is appreciated what you did. Just do that. Oh my gosh. And your point is that you said, I think you said 12 of those, you dramatically lower the attrition rate. Mm-hmm. I get that. I have a statement that I used to make when I was running my businesses. And bear with me because it's got a dramatic word in it. My goal is to create a culture that people desperately want to work in. If you can do that, and if I'm successful doing that, then what happens is when I have an opening, the line is very long and I can choose a better person. It's like having a football team that's got a great culture and a great coach, and they got a chance to win the Super Bowl. When they're looking for a free agent, all the free agents line up and go, okay, pick me.
Right.
It is an incredible sight to see when that happens, because culturally that means you've got the right stuff in place to make it work.
So that's interesting because we can go a little bit local here, because I believe, honestly, that's what the Chiefs have done a little bit with the foundation of what they've set. 3 straight AFC championship games, 2 straight Super Bowls. They won one, they lost one. You've got a coach who's just second to none. You've got a generational talent in a QB. And what I believe it's doing is attracting some people to come here, because you hear them say, well, I mean, I've got money. This is about getting the Super Bowl trophy and getting a ring. And I hear, that's what I hear you saying. That's kind of a parallel. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I would make sure you don't balance too much toward the success as the draw. It's still important. It is important. I think Andy Reid, when he was still known as a great guy that had never won a championship, was building that kind of culture and was attracting that kind of people. And he's one of the reasons, and so is probably the senior executives and the owner and all that. They are all part of creating the culture that led us to get the right people that led to the Super Bowl. So I'm not down. Believe me, Mahomes is
right.
What I love watching him. How about that?
It is special. I've had a chance.
You can't look away. You can't look away. And there's nothing wrong. That's awesome. The culture has to be right, because even if you have that kind of talent, if the culture isn't right, you have a chance to win, but it's a lower chance and it will not be sustained.
Well, and the other thing too, and we all see it, which is And it kind of brings us full circle is the one thing, because I was the first one to interview him after his first start in Denver. And he is what we think he is. He is authentic. He is real. And he is a great role model in every sense of the imagination. And that really kind of comes back to what you talked about being authentic and being who you are. Now, so we're getting close to the end of our time, and I don't want to let this go. Everything we've talked about today, Harry, has a lot to do with make a difference. And that's the segment that we're going to go into right now. So make a difference. What do you do to help others? And this is a chance for you to kind of espouse and talk about what you're doing in your life. I know there's a lot of different things and how you're helping make a difference with others.
Gosh, I love this kind of stuff. My mind is just racing. And I'm a big fan of three, so I'm going to give three things. First of all, I love mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
I have had successes and I've had failures. I've been at big companies and little companies. So my breadth of experience is such that I can often bring good perspective to people that are going through something.
Mm-hmm.
And it usually is, I'll say, the 28 to 42-year-old crowd, mainly because those are people who are the ones that may have already started a business and now they're hitting a roadblock or something. I love spending time with them. I have time to give. I give it to them. I question them. I push them. I prod them. And then I follow up and work with them. So the mentoring thing is cool. Now, I get probably more out of it than they do because I get to learn and I get engaged. But that's my giving back to the Kansas City business community. The dollars too. Head for the Cure is a wonderful organization. It's at 1607 Oak, so it's a Kansas City-based company founded by Matt Anthony. It's a charity that supports brain tumors and research for brain cancer. That dreaded disease has affected my wife and our family.
Right.
And I started my speaking business. And what I do is that I started in 2012 when I wrote my first book, Get Real Leadership. I give 100% of my gross speaking fees to Head for the Cure and 100% of the book proceeds. I did the math last night, and I think I just went over $480,000 raised from speeches and books. And just so you know, Kendall, I ain't stopping. I love it. I'm doing something that I love. I'm good at it, and I'm supporting my family, my life, and a great cause. I mean, come on. How good is that?
Yeah, it really is. I think the saying goes that the greatest thing you can do is be of service to others, and that's exactly what I hear you talking about. I mean, to almost be on the cusp of $500,000 and giving everything to that when nobody would fault you if you took a portion or if it was part of your business. But the fact is, it means that much to you. And I really think that's a good thing that we can end on. And I'll let you end with it, which is, ultimately as human beings, if we have a chance to make a difference, everything else seems to fall in place.
That's fair. By the way, the third point was volunteering. I love volunteering my time. I was just the other day, I was a greeter at a vaccine clinic. As people came in, I was the person to calm them down stuff. I have the time, so I do that too. So it's mentoring, dollars, and volunteering. On my Instagram, maybe my LinkedIn, I have a sentence that says, trying to make a difference every day. Which matches up so perfectly with one of your themes for your entire business here in your podcast. I really think about it. I get up and I think, all right, who and how can I impact positively? I got a lot of this from Sam Walton. I did not change how I operated as a result of Sam Walton. Sam Walton set me free. Because of my pleasing, I tend to be a joyful, people pleaser, which can get you in trouble in business if you don't temper that. What he did was he showed me the way that you can be respectful, you can build relationships, and you can win. Because before I met him, I thought you had to either be a hard ass and you had to treat people kind of in a mean way or use power, or you could be a people person, but the two couldn't cross. Sam Walton taught me that you can have that all together. And I will tell you, the ability to make a difference relies on that. And my thought is, okay, maybe it's going to be a 30-minute Zoom call with someone who has a question about somebody they want to hire and they want to know whether I will interview them. I love doing that. Why wouldn't you ask if you know me and you want to do that? So what I think making a difference is defined as something little, big, or difference making, but as long as it is real and matters to the person receiving it, it's a win.
Well, Harry, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. I think all the points you made were wonderful. I think you made a difference today with so many, and I appreciate you taking the time with it. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. So again, I just want to say thank you for that. And then I want to say thank you again to Crown Automotive in Lawrence, Kansas, for all they do, and really believing that this show makes a difference, and being behind it for those reasons. Give them a call at 785-843-7700, or simply go to crownautomotive.com. Thank you, Miles. Appreciate it very, very much. And Harry, with that, thank you very much. Look forward to connecting in the future, and I'm sure we'll maybe see each other at church as well.
I love it. All right. Peace, and thanks for having me.
You bet.